The Dynasty Podcast is a free-flowing conversation that occasionally touches on mature subjects. You were warned. The Dynasty Podcast is brought to you by Jumbo Donuts. Get a delicious blueberry muffin, bacon and cheese sandwich, or the Jumbo Donuts world-famous chocolate-covered donut. Don't be a fool. Start the day off right at your local Jumbo Donuts.
It's time to play the music. It's time to light the lights. It's time to meet the assholes on the Dynasty tonight. That's right. It's time to put on makeup. It's time to dress up right. It's time to raise the curtain on the Dynasty tonight. Why do we always come here? I guess we'll never know. It's like some kind of torture to have to watch the show. And now let's get things started. Why don't you get things started? It's time to get things started on the most sensational, inspirational, celebrational, sexuational. This is what we call the Dynasty Podcast. And now, coming to you live from Riverdale Studios, your host, the one, the only, Eric Costanza!
Yes! Greetings and salutations, my fellow Dynasty coaches. Welcome to episode number 2 of the Dynasty Podcast. I would like to thank you all for listening to episode number 1. We are back here as we head out of week 2 into week 3. Again, this is Eric Costanza coming to you live from Riverdale Studios. This particular Dynasty Podcast, again, episode number 2, I would like to take a second to kind of stray away from the Dynasty League, and I would like to dedicate this podcast to the one, the only Mr. Mo Lewis. Many of you probably already know who the hell Mo Lewis is and why he is also very important in all of our lives. But as a reminder, I assume and I think everybody in the league is a Patriot fan. I'm not sure when you're going to be listening to this podcast, but this Thursday, September 23rd, marks the 10-year anniversary of the day in which Mo Lewis cremated Drew Bledsoe. I think it was like week 3 in the 2000-2001 season. And what happened at that point is that Mr. Tom Brady then took over, and as they say, the rest is history. So thank you, Mo Lewis. And getting back here into the Dynasty Podcast, again, I would like to thank everybody who listened to episode number 1 and provided me feedback on the podcast. Given, obviously, the amount of time that I put into the podcast, I just want to make sure that I am maximizing everybody's enjoyment level. So, please keep the feedback coming. If you already provided feedback, thank you, and continue to do so if need be. If you have not, then I would appreciate it if you did. I just want to make sure, again, that I am doing everything that is good from a podcast standpoint. If there's anything that needs to be corrected, anything that maybe we should get rid of, anything that we should just make better, anything that doesn't work, etc., just let me know, and I would appreciate it. And speaking of feedback, actually one of the coaches provided me with some feedback, which is in regards to the coaches interview, and how the audio was a little bit obviously hard to understand, not to the point where you couldn't understand it, but just a little bit difficult, which I was fully aware of. But I'm proud to pronounce that just the other day I stopped at my local Radio Shack right down the street from Jumbo Donuts, and I purchased some audio equipment, which will hopefully make the coaching interviews audio a lot more clear and louder. I'm keeping my fingers crossed. I'm not sure, but I'm hoping that will be the case. I still thank Coach Zach Palucha last week for being the kind of the guinea pig from a coaching interview standpoint, and I thought he did a fantastic job. But hopefully going forward, beginning in this podcast, the coaching interview audio will be a lot better. Additionally, on the league site, we have a relatively new league poll. I think it was put up by myself at the end of last week, which basically states or asks for all to vote on your favorite Dynasty Podcast jingle. And the results are interesting. They tell me that really all the jingles are pretty kick-ass, which I already knew, but I'm glad to see that the league is in agreement with me. The Dynasty Power Rankings jingle has gotten 12% of the voting. The intro has gotten 25% of the voting. Last week's results got 25% of the voting, and next week's matchups jingle is in the slight lead, which has 38% of the votes. There's 8 of 12 coaches who have voted, so that means there's 4 teams or coaches that have not voted. So if you have not voted yet, please do so. And we also have a Dynasty administrative update that I would like to announce here to everybody, which is that Coach Brian Tavaleri has graciously accepted his second league role. As you probably know, he's currently the Dynasty League road trip advisor. However, he has accepted a second role, which is to be the Dynasty Achievements Analyst, which basically means, I'm sure many of you are already fully aware of this, but within the Dynasty spreadsheet, we basically keep track of all the coaches' coaching achievements and track them. So if you go into your team profile page or team profile, one of the many things within there, you can see how many coaching achievements you have obtained via the time in which you've been a coach in the Dynasty. And within the stats page, you can there's a list there that you can compare to see how you compare to the other coaches in the league in regards to how many coaching achievement points you have. So Brian is going to be helping me out in basically determining when a coach obtains these achievements, kind of on either a weekly or a bi-weekly basis. So thank you, Coach Tavaleri, for stepping up to do that. So that's what I have to say about that. Sit back, grab yourself a chocolate-covered jumbo donut, thank Mo Lewis, and let's get into the first segment, which is let's take a look at last week's results.
Now let's take a look into last week's results. Who kicked some ass? Who sucked?
Oh, God. Oh, my God.
Now, it was a very high-scoring week. 9 of the 12 teams scored over 100 points. Let's go ahead and take a look at the first game, which was the game of the week, the Hong Kong Cavaliers versus the Bubba Gump Shrimp. It was a high-scoring affair. Bubba had 3 guys just completely go nuts. Matt Stafford, Miles Austin, 33 and 32 points, both in the top 5 of top fantasy players this week. LaShawn McCoy, 23 points. But Hong Kong had a little bit more of a team effort. Really an all-around team effort led by Jeremy Macklin, who had 29 points. And Hong Kong beat Bubba Gump for the first time in franchise history, a score of 148 to 131. The next game, the Riverdale Scoopers versus the Handy Quacks. Now, before we get into the Handy Quacks and what they accomplished, what his team accomplished, I'm going to just basically summarize the game between